Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 120 based on novel. So let's start. This is 1,000 Leaves. Seeing Qian Fan Yi, most of the people present couldn't help but shrink their pupils. Even the strong fighting emperor in other boxes and Dong Chuan standing next to the stand couldn't help but change their face. A pair of sharp eyes instantly stared at the Qian Fan Yi in Xiao Yang's hand. Yes, it's true that thousands of leaves can't be wrong, but it's strange. These thousands of leaves have always been the treasure of the woman Jin Yao. Outsiders don't even touch them. How can they appear in the boy's hand now? Dong Chuan stared at the 1,000 leaves in Xiao Yang's hands with doubts in his eyes, and his heart couldn't help a burst of stomach fei. Naturally, he also knows something about the 1,000 fan tree. In his heart, Jin Yao takes the 1,000 fan tree very seriously. No one can touch it except herself, let alone take off the leaves of the 1,000 fan tree. Even now, the 1,000 fan tree has withered, but Jin Yao still regards it as forbidden. However, at present, the 1,000 fan leaves appear in Xiao Yang's hands, which makes the people present feel surprised. Sharp eyes suddenly turned, and Dong Chuan raised his eyes to a box in the field, where Jin Yao was located. Jin Yao will not miss such an auction feast when she is in Yangcheng and is also a strong fighter against the emperor. At the moment, the concave convex beauty in a tight red skirt is bending down in the box. A pair of long and narrow beautiful eyes can't help but show a look of surprise when she looks at Xiao Yang above the light curtain in front of her. The charming and beautiful red lips tremble gently, and the white jade hand gently presses on the chest. With Jin Yao's breath, a pair of snow peaks in front of her chest become fuller. Against the background of the red skirt, Jin Yao at the moment will feel almost suffocating at a glance. Did this guy really push that bud to this point in 2 days? The light voice in her mouth made the void around her tremble slightly. However, what Jin Yao didn't know was that she thought that the 1,000 fan leaves in Xiao Yang's hand at the moment were the bud 2 days ago. In fact, the bud had already been transformed into a big tree similar to the 1,000 fan tree of Jin Yao under the catalysis of Jiu. It was taken from it. For 2 days, Xiao Yang kept wasting his fighting spirit, while Jiu controlled the yang of the living creature and showed his power to the greatest extent. Kung Fu pays off. 2 days later, Xiao Yang got 2,000 fan leaves with more than 1,000 years and more 1,000 fan leaves with less than 1,000 years. Naturally, the mother of these 1,000 fan leaves is the biggest harvest. Xiao Yang now has his own 1,000 fan tree. The 1,000 medicine workshop and his party, however, made Xiao Yang earn a full pot. At present, the 1,000 fan leaf in his hand is one of the 2,000 fan leaves in his hand. Of course, most of this is due to Guyo. If he hadn't done it, I'm afraid Xiao Yang couldn't have catalyzed 1,000 leaves of more than 1,000 years in 2 days, even if he did his best. The 1,000 fan leaves of more than 1,000 years are enough to make the strong fighting emperor excited. At present, Xiao Yang took out the 1,000 fan leaves. The strong fighting emperor in the field immediately threw their eyes full of greed at the 1,000 fan leaves in Xiao Yang's hands. He noticed that the breath in the people's bodies was almost gushing, but Xiao Yang in the air suddenly gave a cold hum from his nose. At the same time, he was suddenly shocked, his mind moved, and there was a terrible threat of vast soul in the center of his eyebrows, which immediately turned into an invisible wave of soul, sweeping across the whole auction house. In the blink of an eye, the faces of everyone present changed dramatically. Under the control of Xiao Yang's mind, the terrible soul is like a huge mountain on everyone's head. It has a terrible momentum, which makes everyone out of breath. Some people with poor strength fainted on the spot and fainted directly. At this moment, even those who are in the box, the look on everyone's face has changed, but without exception, they all feel dignified for Xiao Yang at the moment. Until then, they just remembered that the young man in black robe standing in front of them was not only a 6-star-and-a-half emperor, but also a third-order herbalist who would be afraid of even the strong fighting emperor. Such people can't allow them to underestimate at all. On the stand, Xu Songming's face was extremely gloomy and resisted the threat of the terrible soul from overhead. He never thought that Xiao Yang could take out 1,000 leaves. In this way, even if Xu Songming was unwilling in his heart, he could only return bitterly. Hehe, sir, there will be no looting in my Tianyun auction house. You can rest assured about this. Therefore, I hope you can put away your soul power. After all, this auction will continue. At this time, Fang Qian's gentle laughter came from the faint, as if it were an ancient bell, echoing in the auction market. Hearing Fang Qian's words, Xiao Yang withdrew his eyes. He happened to see the latter looking at him with a smile. He arched his hands with his fists to himself. Then Xiao Yang nodded slightly, moved his mind, and took back the spread soul power. Now that Fang Qian has given the steps, he will not continue to ask for trouble. At present, the deterrent effect he wants has been achieved. I believe these fighting emperors will not easily make his ideas, and Xiao Yang doesn't pay attention to those semi-emperor strong ones. With the power he is now sitting on, Xiao Yang has long ignored the strong people above the level of fighting emperor, ordinary semi-emperor. Hihi, ladies and gentlemen, I wonder if anyone is willing to pay a higher price than this gentleman. If not, I will announce that this flaming flower, the winner of today's auction, is this gentleman. At this time, Fang Qian's old face was full of a smile. Xu Songming's defeat seemed to make him quite happy. Hearing this, Xu Songming couldn't help humming angrily. Although his heart was full of grievances, he could only be angry in his heart. In front of Xiao Yang, even though he was so powerful in the past, it was difficult to resist the dazzling brilliance of the latter. After some unfair cursing in his heart, finally, Xu Songming had to wave his sleeve robe angrily and left the auction house with an iron blue color on his face. As for the people on the stage, it is because of Xiao Yang's relationship that Xu Songming has long been forgotten in his thoughts. Even no one knows his departure. In the box, Xiao Yang's smile gradually expanded. Finally, he couldn't help laughing. Seeing Murong Qianqian's pretty face, he couldn't help showing a happy smile. Then, the outside world, a new round of auction, also opened again. After the fiery flowers, the atmosphere on the auction ground became more and more high. With each piece of auction products coming on stage, the mood of the people in the stands became more and more excited. At the same time, the smile on Fang Qian's old face became more and more cheerful. As for the strong fighters in the box, although there were a few competitions, it still belonged to a few. Until a moment, in a long silent box, the middle-aged man with his eyes closed finally opened his eyes slowly again. At the same time, a sharp and domineering cold light flashed from the depths of his pupils. At the moment the middle-aged man opened his eyes, he saw the emptiness around him, but he couldn't help shaking slightly. "How's it going?" There was no emotion in the plain words, but it was enough to make the void tremble until the edge of collapse. The investigation of the Hui leader and his subordinates is no different from what the leader expected. These two people came from the east. Calculated by time, the time from Sulan City to here was just 2 days ago. It is certain that the two people mentioned by the old ancestors are them. Creak. With a burst of subtle words falling, a pair of white palms under the middle-aged man's sleeve robe suddenly clenched up, and an uncontrollable killing intention poured out of his eyes. "Patriarch, do you want to now? Stand down. This is the territory of Tianyun Auction House. Even people from the 4 main doors can't do it easily here, not to mention us. Wait, when the auction is over, our clan leader will personally meet this third-order herbalist for a while." The hot atmosphere of the auction continues. After the auction of the flaming flowers, Xiao Yang in the box rarely makes a bid again and gets the flaming flowers. The biggest purpose of Xiao Yang's trip has been completed. As for others, Xiao Yang is not interested. Second, he really doesn't have much capital. The catalysis of the 2,000 fan leaves is extremely difficult. Moreover, thanks to Jiu, Xiao Yang hopes to keep the remaining 1,000 fan leaves if he can for alchemy in the future. With the flow of dazzling auction items from the auction platform, even with Xiao Yang's determination, he couldn't help feeling shocked at the great amount of money of the auction. During the auction, Xiao Yang couldn't help feeling a little excited about the treasure of some auction items, but after some inner struggle, he finally became silent. Originally, Xiao Yang wanted to take a chance to see if there would be any more medicinal materials he needed. Unfortunately, although Xiao Yang thought very well, the sky didn't go with people's wishes. Kaiyang flower itself is a very precious medicinal material, which can be predicted by Xiao Yang at this auction. This is already extremely lucky. Xiao Yang's idea at the moment is a little greedy. In the following expected waiting, the process of the auction is also gradually approaching the end. At the same time, the value of each auction item on the auction platform is becoming more and more high, even reaching the point of almost priceless treasure. At least, in the eyes of everyone in the auction house at the moment, those things are indeed worthy of these 4 words. At this moment, all the powerful fighting emperors in the box have also come up with their real capital. Round after round of fierce competition is going on in full swing in the field. Tens of millions of spiritual coins, all kinds of precious medicinal herbs and pills, and high-level kung fu fighting skills are quickly traded like ordinary goods at this moment. Alas! With a low sigh, He saw that the auction was coming to an end, but there was still nothing that moved him. Xiao Yang also felt a little unwilling in his heart. Well, it's so boring here. Can we go? Murmuring with a small mouth, Murong Qianqian's pretty face was also lying on the handrail, bland, and asked Xiao Yang. Wait, the auction will be over soon. Besides, the flaming flower is still in the auction house. I can't get it until the auction is over. Now, just bear it again. Hearing the speech, Xiao Yang had to smile bitterly and shake his head, comforting Murong Qianqian. At the same time, his eyes returned to the light curtain again. On the auction platform at the moment, the rhythm is rapidly approaching the end. Therefore, all the items taken out are also heavy things. For example, at present, a volume of advanced human skill is being fried to the peak at a rapid speed. This volume of skill, called Shadow Swallowing Determination, is a volume of Dark Attribute skill. Dark Attribute, which is relatively rare among all cultivators' attributes, and its value is even more valuable. In a short time, this volume of Shadow Swallowing Decision has been raised to a high price, and its value has reached the level of tens of millions of spiritual coins. Compared with the fighting skills of the same level, the value of martial arts in the eyes of practitioners is slightly higher. After all, the strength of fighting skills also comes from the practitioner's own details, and a good volume of martial arts can improve the practitioner's overall strength, which will undoubtedly make the practitioners more excited than fighting skills. Therefore, even if the value of this volume of shadow-eating decision has been fired to the level of 50 million lincoin, it seems that there is no intention to stop looking at this momentum. And this also makes Xiao Yang in the box at the moment unable to help but exclaim again. Tens of millions of spirit coins. Xiao Yang admitted that even if he sold all his things, he would never be able to exchange so many spirit coins. Those who fight against the Emperor, for a role of skill, casually offered such a sky-high price. I have to say, this can really be called heroic dry cloud. However, even so, Xiao Yang is not interested in this so-called shadow-swallowing decision. Compared with the former, in Xiao Yang's view, his own burning decision is better than the former. Although today's burning formula can only be called a human-level low-level skill, its growth is unmatched by any skill in the world. As long as Xiao Yang can get enough different fire, what human-level high-level, even the holy-level skill, burning resolution can also be achieved. Of course, this premise is that Xiao Yang must have enough different fires to improve the level of burning. With this in mind, Xiao Yang could not help nodding fiercely. He knew that the only way to evolve the burning formula at present was to quickly find the medicinal materials needed to refine the ice elixir, refine the elixir and devour the bone spirit cold fire. Although he was reluctant to give up, Xiao Yang also understood that Guyo's mind was here. If he didn't accept it, Guyo would be more cold. At the same time, he would be more dangerous in the face of the so-called Ghost Hall. Since the last meeting with the main hall of the Ghost Hall, Xiao Yang has become more and more aware of the importance of strength. With the strength of those guys, he can easily deal with himself. What Xiao Yang depends on is only the quiet bones in his body. But if he wants to really protect himself, Xiao Yang still needs more powerful strength. And the source of this power is different fire. Alas! It seems that we have to speed up the search for medicinal materials. At present, there are 6 kinds of medicinal materials for refining ice lingdan and bingling cold liquid. These 6 kinds of medicinal materials are also a lot of trouble. With a light frown on his brow, Xiao Yang couldn't help feeling a pressure in his heart. Especially now that he is in Shilin region, the 4 major gates have coveted again. I'm afraid the whole western region will be against him. If he doesn't have strong enough strength, he can't survive in front of the 4 major gates. But relying on Guyo alone, Xiao Yang no longer hopes. When he thinks about it, even the soul power he is proud of is borrowed from Guyo. Xiao Yang feels a shame on himself. After calming down, Xiao Yang just took back his mind. At the same time, Fang Qian with a smile on his face also took out a silver plate again. Under the cover of the cloth, no one can see what is in full bloom in the silver plate, but can roughly see the outline of the east and west. The auction item seems to be a square. I guess it may be a box. The real auction item may be in that box. At this moment, the strong fighters in each box gradually became dignified. Finally, what they were waiting for from beginning to end finally came out. In a box, the charming body wrapped in a red skirt slowly got up from the chair under her body, and a nervous mood appeared in her beautiful eyes. In several other boxes, including the middle-aged man who had been sitting still, he also got up slowly at the same moment, and his deep eyes were full of light. Hey, everyone, the next auction will be the last one of this auction. After this auction will officially end. I sincerely hope that all of you here can go back satisfied. Therefore, you must not miss this last auction, Fang Qian said with a smile on his face. At the same time, his dry palms slowly took off the covering cloth on the silver plate. Immediately after that, a jade box with white body and glittering treasure light appeared in the sight of everyone present. As the cover cloth was removed, a square jade box with white body was slowly exposed to the air. At the same time, everyone's eyes were attracted by the jade box in front of us. But immediately after that, the crowd could not help frowning. Although they could see that the material of the jade box was unusual, at the same time, they could also know that it was not a real auction item. The so-called last item of the last axis should be the thing contained in the jade box. Under the gaze of all kinds of eyes in the field, Fang Qian's old face also showed a kind smile again. Immediately, his deep eyes swept slowly from the boxes above, and his turbid old eyes overflowed. He knew that the reason why these guys would come to the auction was mostly for the things in the jade box. At present, the auction has reached the last moment. These guys will definitely take out their real capital to compete for the items in the jade box. At the same time, Xiao Yan, standing in the box at the moment, could not help but frown. The breath in the other boxes changed. With Xiao Yan's soul power at the moment, he naturally noticed it. Immediately, Xiao Yan couldn't help but look frozen. He was surprised that the things in the jade box could make these strong fighters moved. This item can be auctioned as the final item at this level of auction. I'm afraid it's unusual. Hey, you guys, the last auction item is in the jade box. Now, I can clearly tell you that this auction item is a pill. On the auction table, Fang Qian stroked his grey beard with one hand. At the same time, his mouth was also a voice with a smile. As soon as Fang Qian said this, the expression on the faces of those present couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Immediately, he looked at Fang Qian with a strange look. Unexpectedly, the last final item would be a pill. At the same time, Xiao Yang in the box couldn't help but feel a little surprised. He also didn't expect that the last auction item would be a pill. Of course, Xiao Yang will not really treat this pill as an ordinary imperial pill. After all, it can be regarded as the last thing at the auction. How can this pill be any product? I'm afraid it has reached the level of third-order pill at least. With this in mind, Xiao Yang's dark eyes couldn't help but flash a sharp color. It seems that the ultimate goal of these strong fighters at the auction is this pill. The third-order pill is really worth fighting against the Emperor. No wonder these guys will have a momentum increase when they see this jade box. Then, Fang Qian on the auction platform, in the suspicious eyes of everyone in the audience, his dry palm stretched out again, slowly covered the jade box, and then opened it carefully. When a gap gradually expanded along the edge of the jade box, a trace of danxiang gas-like cloud also overflowed from the jade box. The full-bodied danxiang quickly filled the whole auction house. After everyone smelled the danxiang on the spot, the expression on everyone's face instantly became shocked. When the danxiang qi entered the body, they were clearly aware that the fighting qi in their body was vaguely floating under the influence of the danxiang qi, but they couldn't appear in a year of cultivation. Even, some semi-imperialist strong men who were already on the edge of breakthrough in the field, with the diffusion of this danxiang gas, have been stagnant in their bodies. Unexpectedly, at this moment, it was like a closed door was suddenly opened. The breath in the whole human body suddenly rioted, as if it was time for the breakthrough. This. What pill is this? It can even arouse my cultivation. At this moment, the field was filled with screams of horror, which kept ringing one after another. Everyone's faces were full of horror. At the same time, when looking at the jade box being slowly opened on the auction platform, a deep look of greed emerged from the depths of their eyes, and even someone had mentioned the fighting spirit in their body, it seems to be ready to go. However, at a certain moment, in this huge auction house, there was a sudden cold hum like thunder, which made everyone present instantly recoil. Ladies and gentlemen, please abide by the rules of my auction store, otherwise, don't blame me for being merciless. With this indifferent voice, Dongchuan's figure also slowly emerged on the auction platform. He stood on one side of the crystal column with his hands around his chest and a domineering face. His fierce and domineering eyes slowly swept over all the people present, especially when his eyes swept over the boxes above the auction house. Noticing Dongchuan's eyes, a low hum with different tones came out from each of the boxes. Immediately, it was followed by silence. Only in the box where Xiao Yang was located, Xiao Yang and Murong Qianqian stared at the round pill slowly exposed to the air. The whole pill is the size of a dragon's eye. It is mainly ice blue. It is also mixed with some dark white lines like running water. The two are interspersed with each other, which makes the whole pill look very good. The pill is really good looking, but at the same time, Xiao Yan can also detect the terrible medicine contained in it with the naked eye alone. That kind of medicine is by no means comparable to ordinary second-order pills. Is this the third-order pill? The pupil shrinks slightly, Xiao Yan said in surprise. However, the next moment, Fang Qian on the auction table also spoke again. Hehe, everybody, this pill is called Huaji pill. I don't know who is present, but someone knows it. With his eyes narrowed, Fang Qian looked around with a bright smile, but after a circle, the eyes of all the people in the audience could not help avoiding them. Obviously, the people present did not understand the so-called Huaji pill. Hehe, it doesn't matter if you don't know me. As long as I introduce you, I believe you will know me. With a faint smile, Fang Qian slowly swept his muddy old eyes from the whole audience again, looked at the boxes, and immediately opened his mouth and said with a smile. Huaji pill, fourth order pill. Huaji pill, fourth order pill. The words in Fang Qian's mouth have not been completely spit out, but the look on the faces of the people in the whole auction house has changed in an instant. In addition to those strong men who had clearly been predicted for a long time, even Xiao Yang, who was in the box at the moment, suddenly became surprised on his face. Xiao Yang was also shocked by Fang Qian's words. He didn't expect that this Huaji pill would be a fourth order pill anyway. Fourth order. The two words whispered in his mouth, and the expression on Xiao Yang's face became more and more frightened. At the same time, the body originally nestled in the chair, I don't know when, has stood up. At this moment, even Murong Qianqian, who was beside Xiao Yang, had a bored look on his pretty face. At this moment, he also showed an extremely surprised look. In the outside world, the people who were already intimidated by Dong Chuan's momentum stood in place as if they were statues at this moment. Everyone's ears echoed Fang Qian's words just now like the sound of a bell. Huaji pill, fourth order pill. As for the strong fighters in the box, everyone's face showed an uncontrollable excited look. After waiting for so long, until the auction came to an end, what they had been waiting for was finally completely revealed in front of them. Cluck, is this Huaji pill? The fourth order pill is really extraordinary. Inside the box, Jin Yaomei's eyes in a red dress stared at the blue and white elixir in the jade box. The tip of his dexterous nose gently sucked a faint smell of elixir from the air and whispered intoxicated on his face. At the moment, Jin Yao's appearance is even more exciting. Huaji pill. The clan leader will decide this pill. In another empty box, the middle-aged man stood upright in front of the light curtain, his broad palm and 5 fingers spread out, and his palm was facing the Huaji pill displayed on the light curtain, just like he wanted to hold it in his palm. A pair of silvery white pupils showed a cruel color. At the same time, the greedy look under them could not be covered up. The fighting spirit in the body has been running to all parts of the middle-aged human body without intuition. An invisible momentum and pressure has diffused from the body, making the void around the middle-aged human body tremble. At the same time, the same situation is happening in several other boxes. On the auction platform, Fang Qian looked at the sculpture-like figures on the surrounding stands with a smile. His turbid eyes scanned the meeting on those boxes and paused slightly. Then he continued to say with a smile. Hehe, Huaji pill is a 4th-level pill. Its function is to enhance the strength of the strong at the level of Fighting Emperor. As he spoke, Fang Qian's eyes fell on those boxes again. Hiss. As soon as Fang Qian said this, Xiao Yang in the box suddenly changed his face, and he couldn't help taking a breath for it. It was not until this moment that Xiao Yang fully understood. No wonder these guys would be moved by this Huaji pill. It turned out that it was not just because the latter was a 4th-order pill. I'm afraid it was the terrorist effect of improving the strength of the strong Fighting Emperor. As we all know, when the strength reaches the level of Fighting Emperor, the growth of strength is more and more difficult. Compared with the level of Half Emperor, it is more difficult to improve the strength of the strong Fighting Emperor. Ordinary semi-emperor strong people can improve their strength by 1 star almost every 1 or 200 years as long as their cultivation talent is okay and quiet. However, Fighting Emperor strong people are different. Even if they have the same cultivation talents, one is a semi-emperor, while the other is a strong fighter. Even if he has been closed for hundreds of years, he may not be able to improve his 1-star strength, or even his first-line strength. At present, with only a small pill, you can improve your strength. I'm afraid no one will want to miss it. As Fang Qian's words fell, the faces of the strong fighters in the box also became grim. They all knew that next, they might have to experience a competition. Of course, although Huaji pill can improve the strength of the strong at the level of Fighting Emperor, it also has a certain limit, and there are many possibilities. I still need to inform you in advance. On the auction table, Fang Qian looked around and immediately opened his mouth again, saying, although Huaji pill can improve the strength of the strong at the level of fighting emperor, at the same time, it also has its own defects. Fang Qian stroked his beard with one hand. At the same time, he covered the open jade box again. After the role of Huaji pill is fully developed, it can enhance the strength of 1 star at most for a strong man at the level of duty. At the same time, it is very likely to only improve the strength of the front line, that is, it may only enhance the strength of a strong man at the beginning of 1 star and a half emperor to the middle of 1 star duty. Of course, this is the second possibility, and the third is everyone I don't want to see the results. Perhaps, after you swallowed Huaji pill, its medicine was completely submerged, and even the strength of the first line could not be improved for you. In the end, Fang Qian also made a look of regret. He shook his head and sighed. To sum up, Huaji pill has a 1/3 possibility. It can make a strong man at the level of fighting emperor improve his 1-star strength, or his first-line strength, or maybe it will be useless. As soon as Fang Qian said this, suddenly, the look on the faces of the strong fighters in the box couldn't help changing slightly. They frowned and showed a worried look between their eyebrows, which even they didn't know. If it is true, as Fang Qian said, even if they auction this Huaji pill, there is only 1/3 of the possibility that they can finally improve their strength. If they can really improve the strength of 1 star, it is worth it for them. Even if they can only improve the strength of the front line, they can also reluctantly accept it. But once the pill has no effect, it will end up empty. At that time, it will not only make them angry, but also make people laugh at them. How can they be reconciled? Hehe, you guys, although this Huaji pill is only 1/3 possible to improve the strength of 1 star for the strong fighting emperor, please understand that talking is better than nothing. Are you not willing to use your money to fight for your cultivation in the next hundreds of years? Fang Qian could understand the worries of the strong fighting emperors present, but at the same time, he had expected them. Therefore, as soon as he opened his mouth, the look on the fighting emperors' faces changed. Ladies and gentlemen, this Huaji pill can be ranked as the 4th level pill. Naturally, it has its own advantages. Looking at the whole continent, there are not a few people who can improve their strength with the help of Huaji pill. The reason why they can break through is that they dare to do and work hard. If they succeed, they will save hundreds of years of hard cultivation and defeat, but also a pile of useless external things. The benefits depend on what you do to them. Stay. In the box, Fang Qian's words were heard. Although the hearts of all the strong fighters could not help shaking, they gradually became silent in the end. Who is not the old man who can sit here? Although Fang Qian's words make them excited and even can't help it, they also know that Fang Qian can become the auctioneer of this auction. Naturally, his auction experience is quite old-fashioned. After all, he just wants them to bid and compete, it's just that we can fry up the price of this Huaji pill. On the auction table, seeing that there was no movement in the boxes, Fang Qian couldn't help but frown. However, he also knew that the guys in the boxes were strong against the emperor after all. They were thoughtful. In order to consider their own interests, they naturally didn't dare to bid easily. Of course, as long as one of them makes a bid, then more people will resist the temptation and begin to bid. At that time, without him saying more, the price of Huajidan will naturally rise wildly. At present, although the atmosphere in the field seems a little depressed, anyone with a clear eye can see that the short silence is just brewing for the next storm. Hehe, everyone, the owner of this Huaji pill hopes to exchange this pill for a volume of spiritual level skills. Regardless of the attributes, the skills only need to be above the spiritual level. Of course, it is also feasible to exchange high-level materials with the same value. However, if someone is willing to exchange skills for skills, the latter can be omitted and present if anyone wants to, please. Fang Qian's words fell, and his turbid eyes swept through the boxes again. His old face showed a look of smiling rather than smiling. Although no one has shouted and photographed until now, Fang Qian's heart is still calm. He believes that what should come will come. However, this wait is nearly half an hour. Everyone in the field has begun to be a little impatient, which is related to the competition between the emperor and the strong, but it has nothing to do with them. Even though they are also excited about this pill, they also know that this 4th order pill will only be in the bag of these strong fighting emperors. If anyone dares to speak, they will only be hostile to the strong fighting emperors in the box and put themselves in danger for a pill. These semi-emperors are not stupid enough. I have 1,000 leaves of 1,000 years. However, just when everyone thought that such a quiet atmosphere would continue, there was a clear cry and clapping again in the huge auction house. The sonorous and powerful voice, like the sound of a bell, echoed endlessly in the whole auction house. The clear voice resounded through everyone's ears and changed everyone's face. At the next moment, all the people present seemed to have agreed together and looked at the box where Xiao Yang was. But they clearly heard that it was another 1,000-year fan leaf. From the beginning of the auction to now, no one has taken it out except Xiao Yang in the box. At present, the sound of thousands of leaves sounded for the second time, and the whole audience immediately thought of Xiao Yang without hesitation. I felt the eyes full of surprise from all directions. Xiao Yang in the box was unmoved on his face. At the same time, on the void outside the box, the void space was slowly distorted, and Xiao Yang's figure appeared in front of everyone on the auction site again. Xiao Yang, who was born now, spread his hands on the void in front of him. In the void above his palm, there was a leaf of the same size as the previous one. It was 1,000 leaves. Seeing the 1,000 fan leaves again, the expression on the faces of those present could not help but change in an instant. From the unique pattern on the 1,000 fan leaves in Xiao Yang's hand at the moment, this 1,000 fan leaf must not be the previous one, which just shows that there is indeed a second 1,000 fan leaf in Xiao Yang's hand. But compared with this, what makes people more curious is whether there is a third, perhaps more 1,000 leaves in the hands of the black-robed youth in front of them. If so, I'm afraid even if Xiao Yang is a third-class herbalist, no one on the court will be willing to let him go today. Hearing Xiao Yang's sudden cry and clapping, Fang Qian on the auction platform below couldn't help looking a little stunned. He was surprised. Xiao Yang in front of him was clearly a half-emperor. Why should he auction this pill? But then Fang Qian realized that it was only a matter of time for Xiao Yang to become a strong fighter with the speed of cultivation against the sky. Even if he auctioned it now, it seemed that it was not unreasonable to plan for becoming a fighter in the future. At the same time, in another place, Jin Yao's pretty face couldn't help showing a look of great surprise. She didn't expect that Xiao Yang took out 2,000 leaves in succession. This guy. What did he do these 2 days? The white forehead slowly overflowed with a trace of cold sweat. Jin Yao could imagine how much Xiao Yang had paid in the past 2 days in order to catalyze the 2,000 fan leaves. I have 100 flowers. Then, shortly after the voice in Xiao Yang's mouth fell, those who fought against the emperor seemed to lose their breath. Outside a box, an old man in yellow robe with a gloomy face showed his birth shape. At the same time, in his hand, a plant that was not like flowers and grass stood slowly. Hearing the old man's voice, the people present couldn't help looking at the latter. Immediately, everyone's faces showed different expressions. People naturally imagined the situation of bidding competition, but what they didn't expect was that these strong fighters would compete with the third-order herbalist. You know, the status of the latter. Usually, most of the strong fighting emperors are unwilling to make enemies with them. At the moment, the old man in yellow robe dares to provoke the hornet's nest in order to get the 4th-level pill. It seems that after this, the old man in yellow robe will get into a lot of trouble. Of course, the old man in yellow robe naturally knows this, but his strength has not been improved for hundreds of years after he advanced to fight the emperor. The ultimate purpose of his participation in the auction is to change the extreme pill. For it, the old man didn't touch other things at the auction. Now it's finally such a moment. Even if he spends all his money and doesn't hesitate to provoke a third-order herbalist, he must take this pill. Although flowers and grasses are good, they are not worth my seasonal flowers. Huaji pill will certainly become something in my bag. At this time, in another box on the auction ground, an old man with long red hair also stepped out. At the same time, a grey flower also appeared in his hands. Fang Qian on the auction table saw this scene, but his old eyes narrowed slowly, and the corners of his mouth showed a satisfied smile. This video will end here.